Welcome to American Snippets. I'm Barb Allen, and my co-founder is Dave Brown. Life is jam-packed with unfairness, both real and perceived. We may not always have a say in what happens to us, but we absolutely have a say in how we respond to it. It took me years to come to terms with my husband's murder and the unfairness of every single aspect of it. I was bogged down in bitterness. I wasn't able to forgive or able to cope with everything that happened to me, everything that was thrust upon us in the aftermath of tragedy. Fortunately for me, I was and still am surrounded by people who inspire me to be my own inspiration. Today's guest is one of these people, and I'm very, very excited and honored to have her here with us today. I first heard Carmen Blandin Tarleton's story about a year ago when I attended an event with my son. Recently, I attended the same event again, and this time I had the opportunity to meet this wonderful woman. I bought her book, I devoured every single page, and I was thrilled when she agreed to be a part of American Snippets. Her book here, Overcome, Blinded, Burned, and Blessed, shares the first part of her incredible story. Today, Carmen, well, first of all, welcome to American Snippets.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Dart.
Sure, thank you so much for being here. I'm holding this book up here for people to see, and later on, we'll send them to your link and tell them how they can go ahead and get your book too, okay?
Sure.
All right. So, your book shares really the first part of your incredible story. A lot has happened since this book was published. Can you take us first through what the book covers, what it's about? The first part of the story.
Sure. My first book that you're talking about really tells the story of what happened to me. It has a little background in the beginning of the book when I met my second husband. But it really focuses on what happened to me in June of 2007, where we were getting divorced, and we'd been together for almost 9 years, and he ended up attacking me one night at my home and dousing me with an industrial strength lye, burning 80% of my body, leaving me completely blind. And so that is the story of pretty much of my recovery up until about the first 5 years, up until 2012, December of 2011. December of 2011 is where the story ends, when I'm put on the face transplant candidate list to have a full face transplant. So that's where that story ends. And it does cover a lot of my difficulties. I've been extremely challenged, and still am, and it really just shares what I went through at the time.
And it doesn't just share it. I mean, you go right in. You take people into every raw moment. So they really, when you're reading this book, it is impossible not to be just floored by everything you went through. And even so, that night of the attack was, horrific enough, but almost it seems like that was just the beginning of things. I mean, everything you've gone through since then. It's one thing to even just survive an attack like that, emotionally and physically survive an attack like that, where your ex-husband broke into your house and attacked you in front of your children. So to make a decision to survive that, and then you have had to make that decision repeatedly in the years since. It's not like you have one struggle and you say, okay, I'm going to get through this, and you fight and you push your way through. The aftermath of this is continuing to impact you today, and the ups and downs where you have hope given and hope taken away. In this book, I think the part that, not like I wasn't floored through the whole story anyway, but when you regained your vision and then you lost it again for that period, I think for me, that is when I almost sort of crashed hardest with you, because to have that restored and then taken, and the fact that you choose to continue every single time something like that happens. Like for me, the Wi-Fi wasn't working here this morning. I'm getting all aggravated, right? But you're like, I'm going to just take whatever comes at you. You let yourself deal with the emotion that you need to deal with, but then you always, always come back. So You were the 7th person in this country, is that correct, to get a facial transplant?
I think I was. I know there are, they did partial faces, so I was the 5th full face.
5th
Full face.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think I was 9th in the world.
And something else that you touched on with people may not even consider, a lot of people, when they know about organ donation, we're familiar with the terms of rejection and all that. But something very interesting that you had to deal with is that you were in a full match because you'd had so many blood transfusions before then that you were
blood and tissue. Yeah.
Yeah.
They put a lot of tissue, cadaver tissue on your body when you're done, because you lose all your skin.
Yeah.
So and of course all the blood and other blood components. Yes.
So you had to deal, and now you're dealing with rejection issues.
I am at this time. I have been dealing with it since May. Usually face transplant patients have less severe little rejection episodes that we've all had now and again. But for me, because I don't have a complete match, I've gone into a more serious kind of rejection. So I've had a lot of I've had a protocol treatment. I've been doing that, and it's tough. It's tough. Physically, it's tough, and I don't tolerate things as a normal physical 49-year-old woman because I've lost so much, subcutaneous tissue. I'm an 80% derm. I'm mostly scarred. Right. So I don't have a lot of room to move when it comes to the side effects of some of these medicines.
But what you do have is an extraordinary will. I keep saying one thing you touch on, but there's so many things you touch on. You touch on how you made a conscious effort to not become addicted to that pain medicine, how you speak right now about how much pain you're in, and there's a lot of people who would right away, our first instinct is to go for that, medicine cabinet and grab something to take the pain away, but you are very adamant about not becoming addicted to that pain medication.
At this time, I have to use it. I use it so sparingly.
Right.
Because I've been there, done that, and that was a new kind of hell, and that story will be in my second book, which I'm writing now.
You are?
I'm writing my second book now. It's going to be called Many Faces, Same Soul, Creating a Life After Tragedy.
That's awesome.
So I have a lot of all the stories after my face transplant and during my face transplant, and so I have to use it come certain times. And I'm not against using it. I have to just be very careful because I don't want to get physically dependent on it again for any reason.
Right. And that is the difference. You're depending on yourself and using that as a tool to help you through rather than depending on that.
It's not my first choice.
Yeah.
And I must say this, what I'm going through now has really, in the last few weeks, has really been, I haven't had this kind of pain in many years. I haven't been challenged like this in many years. And I must say, I don't like it. I do not like having to go back there. And I was quite surprised that I've gone back there. That I've made a choice to go back there and have this treatment to see if I can save my face. So right now, it's worth it to me. It's worth it to me. And I have to keep reminding myself that to move forward.
That is a good message, where people can get down and give up on something because it's hard, it's difficult, it's painful in some way. I think you just ram that home. If it's worth it to you, you go that extra distance.
Well,
and you push
there's
yourself.
a lot of power. There's a lot of power there in choice.
Yes.
There's a lot of power in self-responsibility. And I get to the point where, in my head, I sometimes blame people. But I know it's crap. I take self-responsibility for my choices. If somebody, for an example, somebody doesn't treat you very
Right.
well. Okay, I don't have to have anything to do with that person. I can let that person go instead of just staying in that relationship or that friendship and ditching about it. You
That
know, that's not self responsibility. There's a lot of power in that, and a power in choice.
it does, and that is it's not something that necessarily comes naturally to most people. It is absolutely a skill set that needs to be learned and
Yeah, well,
developed and
I
maintained.
totally agree with that because our society, it does not natural because our society doesn't teach us that.
Right.
Culture doesn't teach us that, and so there's so many things in our culture that are just to my perspective is just false premise. It's just not truth, and it just dogs you down with your self-worth and all of this, all these issues that are not dealt with, emotional issues as you're growing up, and all of this is just your parents do as good as they can, of course, but society doesn't go there
No.
of how to treat each other and how to it's okay to cry. You're
That's a good
not a
one.
wuss if you cry, and just stuff like that. So I like when I go out and do public speaking, especially to the young people, I like to really hone that in and just say, because they're the ones that are going to change it.
Yes.
The incoming generations are the ones that are going to change it. So to me, that I love speaking to the young people.
I can tell you. So that is where I saw you at the Congress for Future Medical Leaders. And this was the second year I attended with my son, and my nephew also came, with his mother, my sister. And your message to the kids, there's 5, 6, 7,000 kids there. I don't know how many kids, but it's a lot, thousands of kids there.
Yes, thousands, yeah.
And you did something. So I have 4 teenagers, and I speak to them for 5 minutes, and their eyes are glazing over, and they're in torture. They don't. But you had thousands of teenagers paying attention to every single thing you said, and my son made it a point to tell me what an impact you made on him, and he was excited to meet you. And I didn't let him read your book first because I read it first, but he's next.
Yeah.
We're taking turns. So you've somehow managed to capture the attention of all of these teenagers. Do you go into schools and speak?
I have gone into schools in Stoke, even as young as 7th and 8th graders. And I don't sugarcoat anything.
No.
And I think, and I've got, like at the Congress, I've got about 15 minutes. So what am I going to say in 15 minutes to get these kids' attention and make a difference? And I just feel like that my story will do that.
Yes.
My story is so out there. The last 10 years of my life have been just almost unimaginable. So my story, gets people's attention, and then I have their attention, and then I can be creative and try to really help them.
Then you deliver the
But I've
message.
got only a short period of time, so so it's I love to do it, and that was a part of in my book, When Life is a Choice. I just felt because I wasn't a battered woman and this big event happened that never happens like that. I just felt like it was a calling. It was my purpose, and so there was very much good that came out of that very, very negative event.
Yeah, and that is something I have found personally and professionally as well, that often if you can convince yourself to make that choice, to see it through, you will discover all the good things that come, the good people and the good events and the good changes in your life that come. But it's that middle ground where people are lost. And sometimes even then, like maybe people will look at you and say, oh, she's fine. She's touring. She's writing her second book. She's got it together. Maybe they overlook the fact that for you, every single day is a choice. I mean, for everybody, every single day is a choice. But some people have to commit to that choice a little more, so.
Sure, especially if you live in chronic pain.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say, I would say I've gotten out of the chronic pain because I've gotten, before this rejection episode, I was doing the best I'd ever done.
Right.
And I pain, maybe I had a little discomfort during the day that I had learned to live with it, and so it didn't bother me. And I do yoga and certain things to help my scars, because it's more scar pain than anything. So, that it's people don't, sometimes it's really hard because people don't see you as a regular person anymore. And that's part of our culture and our society, where we see celebrities, we see people that, that have gone through big events, and it's really hard to see them as a normal regular person, and I am a normal regular person, and I try to relay
Yeah.
that I'm not, and I'm not much different than anybody else. I have a certain kind of will and determination that a lot of people have, and I had a will and determination to stay, to live, because I had children. I had two daughters, and I really believe if I hadn't had children at the time that happened,
Right.
I'm not so sure I would have stayed and tolerated all the pain and all the struggles I knew that were coming. So, it was all meant to be. There is divine intervention there. There is something way beyond what we can see. And I know that. And when you know that, and it doesn't matter how you know that or what you believe, but when you really know that, boy, you can really, there's power in that. There's power in that truth. There's power in that knowledge. Other what whatever your perspective is, doesn't matter as long as it serves you. That's what I think. So I have no judgment to anybody who believes this or believes that. If it's serving them and it's good for them and it's not hurting anybody else, and then good for you. Then go for it. That's how I see things now.
Yep. If you can find a purpose, it's easier to cling on to your choice to push through. But you have to find that purpose, and a lot of people struggle to find that purpose, or they,
Yes.
we can misunderstand the purpose, maybe. So, I think your story it touches on so many areas of life where people can use it for small struggles to big struggles. Did it
Yeah.
take you a while before people were comfortable? When you just talked about treating you as a normal person, right? Did it take you a while for people to maybe say something to you, maybe vent about their day or complain about something, and then say, "Oh, like, I shouldn't complain to you"? Does that still happen to you? It
Yes.
happens in my world all the time with stuff that
Yeah.
things that we've gone through. So, does
Right.
do people
It
still
still
say, "Oh,
happens.
I'm sorry, I shouldn't be complaining to you"?
But see, the thing is that when people do that, I tell them, I said, listen, when everybody thinks that I have been through more challenges than the average person. That I agree with that. But listen, to connect with me and to connect with anybody else, if you know how I felt, then that's all that matters. So if somebody's having a bad day, or if somebody having the worst pain in their life, and maybe it's something, maybe it's a broken foot
Right.
or something, and they say, oh, I can't complain because look at Carmen, look at all the pain Carmen's gone through. But see, that's irrelevant to me. We connect by feeling. So when I say this is the worst pain I've had, and you say that's the worst pain you've had, then I know what that pain is. It doesn't matter where the level was. That the judgment of I've had more pain than you. See, to me, that's just judgment. So when you tell me this is the worst pain, and you're feeling very blue or something, I know what that feels like, so I can relate to that.
Yep. I
You
think
see,
that is one of the hardest things to get people maybe to understand. And I know
yeah,
when they say that, they're not saying it to be, it's almost like a compliment in their eye, like in their
yeah,
mind, it's
yeah,
a compliment.
yeah,
Or it's a reminder, or it's a nod to you and everything
yeah,
you've been through. But what it almost winds up doing is creating a divide that's not there. Like in our heads, or in your head, you're like, oh, hey, I'm having a good day today. I saw this great movie, or I heard this funny joke, or it was a beautiful sunset, or whatever it is that put you in
yeah,
a good mood. And then somebody comes along and says that to you, and you're like, it's almost like they're reminding you that you're not supposed to be happy or to be normal, when they say that. So even the little things like that
yeah,
can be something that people don't necessarily process or think of. I call it the last in line syndrome. Like everybody has to turn around. As long as there's somebody behind them that that they see is doing worse, it's like they feel a little more comfortable with their own situation
Yeah,
sometimes. But so you have developed a good relationship with the daughter of the donor,
I have.
right? How special is that? I mean, that's really.
That is, my face transplant. I just can't wait for my second book to be done
I can't
because
either.
my face transplant was a big blessing. It served such a great purpose for me. It extended my life. And I was on incredible amounts of narcotics because I had such scarring in my neck, and my neck was such a problem, and it was so painful most of the time, and I couldn't do anything about it. And when the face transplant option came to be, I just was all in, and I never changed my mind. I never wavered.
Yeah.
I knew it was a saving grace, and it was. And then to be able to meet Norinda, my donor's daughter, Cheryl is my donor, and Cheryl Dinelli Ryder, and her daughter Norinda, and I tell you, it's just been it's just been one of those magical experiences that most people don't get to go through, and we've just been so connected, just so easily, and she really appreciates when she sees me. She sees her mother's face.
Mm-hmm.
She kisses her mother's face, and I'm fine with that. It's my face now. I understand that. And now I do say it's my face. It's a process going through wearing somebody else's face.
Sure.
It's very sci-fi. And she sees me and she kisses me and she knows it's me, that it is her mother's face.
Yeah.
It just is. And that gives her so much comfort, and that just makes me happy. It just makes me happy that it gives her so much comfort.
Yep.
And so we have a great connection, and she's a great, great, sweet, loving, giving person.
That is good. Not everybody sustains relationships like that. Sometimes
right, exactly.
The donors and family and the recipients will meet and carry that meeting with them. But I don't know of all too many who stay in as close touch as you guys have. And I can imagine that is just one little special aspect that
I feel it sure is, and I feel like her older sister, because my age is right between her and her mother, and I just feel like her older sister. I feel like not even obligated or responsible. I feel like I'm her older sister, and I'm going to keep watch for her. I'm going to keep watch over her.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. I just have that connection with her now.
That is great. One other thing that you speak often on and deeply about is the power of forgiveness and what you went through to reach that place in your lives. And I know that there are so many people out there who struggle with this on various levels, from forgiving the person who cut them off in traffic to forgiving the spouse that cheated on them, or in my instance, forgiving the person that killed my husband. Everybody's got their own struggle. So can you tell us a little bit more about how you decided to pursue forgiveness and why? What was your motivation? What's come of it?
I didn't know what I was doing at the time, but in 2010, and I write about some of this in my book. Of course, the first book, I can't cover every story and every detail, but I was feeling blue. I didn't know why. So I went, and I always, even before I was injured, if I felt like sort of stuck, and I'm a growth person, I'm all about self-development, and even then I was, but I didn't know I was. So I said to my mother, take me to the bookstore, and I started listening to all these different kind of inspirational books, and spiritual people, and religious people, and all these different kinds, and Louise Hay, I don't know if you know about her, but she's a very gifted author, and she had a talk that I got on CD, and she said, you don't really move forward until you forgive. In our country, in our society, forgiveness we don't really know what forgiveness is. And I didn't know what true forgiveness was, because I sat down and I started thinking about forgiveness. And we would remember a time when I have a sister that's a year older than me, so we, fight and and I would get upset and then, but I forgave her. And then, if the subject was brought up later, I was just as angry then as I was beginning. And that, to me, that was not forgiveness. So I felt like we didn't know what true forgiveness is. So I had to find out what true forgiveness was. And true forgiveness is really the ability to look at yourself, to look at everything you have done that's negative to other people, and forgive yourself, and to understand that we all, even the best, sweetest person, is going to hurt somebody's feelings, is going to say something wrong, is going to be angry at somebody at some time. That's who we are. We have, and so to me, forgiveness was about that. And once I was able to look in my mirror, and say, oh, okay, now we judge. Okay, he treated me a lot worse than I've ever treated anybody. That's true. Of course I did not deserve that kind of treatment. Of course I didn't.
Of course.
But the truth was, it was already done. And if I wasn't going to let go of that, if I could not forgive him, it wasn't going to hurt him. Holding that anger towards somebody does not hurt them.
No.
It doesn't hurt them. It hurts you. Forgiveness is about you. Forgiveness is about letting it go for yourself. Because once it's done, it's done. And we can be angry for years, and that's only stopping our own growth. That's only making us sick. That's all of the stuff we hold that we are not letting go of, negative things like that, especially the big stuff, the big tragedies. I understand that, you know what? I want to live. I want to move forward. I got things I want to do, and I can't be weighed down with being angry at him. I can't get mad at him every time I have to have a surgery. I mean, how long are you going to blame him for every decision I make when I want a surgery? That's his fault. It just gets out of whack. So so you forgive him. You let him. You're not letting him off the hook. You're not condoning what he did. You're freeing yourself. You free yourself from that stuff, and it lets you go. And I was able to do that. And to me, that was just another blessing. I had so many blessings. I had so many spirits on my side, and I was able to do that. And after I did that, within 6 months, I was public speaking. And I was disfigured then. It was very disfigured. It was difficult for people to look at me. So I had to shine my inner light so bright that people could look beyond my scarred face. And that's what I learned from forgiveness. And I have compassion for him as a human being. My pain was temporary, is temporary. He caused me temporary pain. He's caused himself pain his whole life. He's taken his whole life. And so, so I have compassion for him as a human being. And I don't have any ill feelings towards him. Because ill feelings towards him or anybody else for a long period of time, if you don't deal with it and work through it, you're only hurting yourself. You're not hurting them at all. You're only hurting yourself. So you're doing it to yourself.
Yeah.
What's done is done.
That is that might be one of the most difficult lessons to learn and difficult practices to practice.
It is difficult. It is difficult because we don't have that in our society.
No.
We have put them in jail, execute them. We have all of these very strong perspectives and very strong feelings about people who commit terrible crimes. And so that's that kind, and I understand that. And it's not like I don't disagree with people's feelings about that, but that's not how I think of it. because that doesn't help us. Doesn't
Yeah,
help. And victims will stay victims in that kind of perspective.
there's responding to it appropriately, trials and prisons and sentences, and there's a responding to it with hatred and bitterness, and those two need to be compartmentalized and separated a little, and maybe in order for true healing to happen. And you can't hang on. Like in my instance, I found that I became so consumed for when I got through the immediate aftermath of my husband's murder. I then allowed myself to place my own survival, the dependence on my own recovery, on the verdict. Well, I will be okay as soon as he goes to jail. I will be okay as soon as he gets the death penalty. I will be okay as soon as this happens. And then the courts acquitted him. He was set free. And this whole system that I had established for myself out of bitterness and revenge and anger didn't have the strength. There was nothing there to sustain it, because that outcome I had depended on didn't happen. I had to start all over, because I had placed my own recovery in the wrong outlet, on the wrong path. I didn't place it on myself. I placed it on something I was helpless to.
Right, something you didn't have control of.
Yes, and
an event you needed to happen, but you had no control
over it. And I didn't. If
he had gone to jail and you had gotten what you wanted, you would have had to start over anyway.
Yes, and exactly it. It still would have been based on a false sense of recovery and healing. And I'm not sure that that's a lesson that can be absorbed and taught without being experienced, because it is so deep.
Exactly. Exactly. And I think a lot of, that, and that's why I just say I share my story.
Yeah.
And especially with, some people might hear my story and then something happens to them later in life.
Yeah.
And then they can remember that.
And they call it back. And what you do with your story and the way you write it and the way you tell it is for somebody who hasn't experienced a profound trauma or tragedy in their life, experiences it when they read your book. They experience it with you. They experience your life with you. And I don't think that that's something somebody can read your book and just shake off and forget. I feel like that's something that they will remember when they're faced with their own struggles. They'll call up one of the many, lines or words that you have in there. They will call that up and experiment with it maybe and be, oh my gosh, yes, she was onto something. It works.
I just, I just wanted to be the example.
Yeah.
If I chose to stay, which I did, and on some level, I consciously chose to stay many, many times after I was injured as well. So if I chose to stay, I wanted. And I had this big event and this huge story that was just outrageous. I wanted to use it not only to my benefit, but everybody else.
Yeah.
I wanted to put more positive energy in the world than the negative energy of that 15 minutes. That 15 minutes changed every aspect of my life in 15 minutes. And it was so profound. I just wanted to use it for every person that could hear me, every person I could touch, whether I was aware of it or not.
Right.
That's what I felt I was meant to do. And for me to be involved in that event, that was a big part of why I was involved in that event. It wasn't because I was a battered woman in that pattern. That I wasn't. Right. So that wasn't my lesson. So I needed to figure that out, and that came almost easy because it was so obvious to me. It was so obvious.
Carmen, when does your second book come out?
I don't know. I've got about a third of it written. Now that I've been going through this treatment the last couple of months, I haven't been able to write at all. And and the publishing part is unknown. I don't know how I'm going to get it published. So I'm really hoping in the next year. I'm really hoping that once I'm through this rejection episode and I'm back to normal. That's my job, is to get this book done and I'll find a way. I always do. So, but it's a process. You can't push it. And I tried to push it. It doesn't work.
It
You just
doesn't.
have to be patient. I just have to wait and go through the process. And I really want this to be a really outstanding, helping, supportive book for people.
Yeah,
So I'm much more careful. And I wrote that book with the company I hired, and I did that first book over the phone. I'd only written maybe 80 pages of my stuff, so they integrated all of my stuff into that, and we did it very different back then. And this time I'm doing it traditionally. I'm writing it myself on my computer, and that I don't have the physicality to do it as long as a regular person. So,
right.
So it's a different process for me. I'm excited because I know how good it's gonna be. I know I've learned so much since the first book was published right when I had my face transplant 4 years ago. I wrote that 5 years ago, and it's changed, and I've grown, and a lot. I'm just excited to share it. So I'm hoping in
this
year.
First book is really only half of your story, because it seems
It
seems like so many other things have happened afterwards. That's the truth. So I am very excited to to get your next book when it comes out, and we will blast it out to everybody we can. And I don't know if there's anything I can do to help you in the process of getting it out, but if there is, we're right there to see.
Okay, I'll keep you in mind if I need any.
I know it's hard. I have the 2 books I put out as well, and I know exactly how difficult it is to break through. There's a lot of it's a tough ceiling to punch through.
It is.
It seems like there's more people who are afraid of others succeeding. And for me, I'm physically challenged when it comes to doing physical things, so it takes me longer. Yes. And that I must say has always been frustrating for me, because when you lose a lot of your physical, your physical abilities at the age of 39, I was only 39, and it was tough. It was tough. So I get. I'm a little bit of a bull. I want to go in and get it done even now, and I overdo it, and so I get frustrated with that. But over time I'm learning. I'm learning every day. It's a process.
Learning every day how to live my life and how to live my life the way I want. So.
So can you tell us where people can go to get your book?
Well, right now they can get it right off of Amazon.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm coming out with a new website. I don't have the website online right now. I did in the past, but so I'm building a new website now. So I'm not sure when that's going to come out, but I'll have the link when I have the new website to both books.
Okay.
Amazon, and I also have a music CD which I'll put on my new website that people can get directly from me. So it'll be I'm looking forward to a nice website with a lot of different things that I do, a blog. Like music, everything.
So in the meantime, if people want to get in touch with you to maybe see if you'll come out to speak for an event, how can they do that?
They can email me. My email is Carmen Tarleton, all together. No dots, no anything. Carmen Tarleton at yahoo.com.
Okay. So anybody who is listening, I would strongly encourage you to reach out to Carmen for your event. If you have an event where you need to reach people and shake them up and get them thinking. I can tell you, I saw it for myself, thousands and thousands. If she can reach teenagers, she can absolutely reach the most bored employee or skeptical conference attendee that you have. So not only did you reach teenagers, but you also managed to reach out and establish relationship with doctors, which are arguably the second most difficult segment of society to get to treat people like, more than a 15-minute appointment. I mean, you have established very solid relationships with the doctors, and they respect you as a person,
they
not
do.
Just a patient.
And I you know what, Dar, I can, I demand it. On the big part of this. On the big part of the face transplant experiment, and it's all experimental, especially with nine incomplete NAT. So I'm right there. I want all the information. I don't know what they know, I ask them a lot of questions, and we have a very deep conversation when things are tough and things are unknown. I'm right there. I was a nurse for 20 years before I was injured. I'm not the kind of patient that just says, okay, 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 okay.
Right.
I need to have all the information. I'm really into informed consent. I want all the information, and I might be tough because I ask a lot of questions. So,
you are
I'm
your own advocate.
my own advocate,
yeah.
and I think a lot of that is my nursing history, my nursing background has helped me tremendously. So, but I know not everybody has that.
We would love to have you back when your second book is out, and see if we can't help spread that as well.
Okay, that'd be great.
Okay, and meantime, I hope maybe I get to see you at the next Congress next year.
I'll be there.
We will be.
And I have a great idea for the next one. It will blow you away, Dard.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. I think the next Congress is gonna be very exciting and very different. I have a new idea, and it's people don't do what I'm gonna do.
All right. Well, now I can't wait. The time will fly, and suddenly we'll be back there. That is the Congress for Future Medical Leaders we are talking about. I'll provide some information for that on our website as well. Carmen, thank you very, very much for being here today. I so appreciate it, especially in light of your new bout of pain that you're dealing with. So I really, really appreciate that you took the time out to push through this interview with us.
Thanks. Thank you so much, Dard, for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. And thank you all for listening in to another episode of American Snippets. All right, that's where he'll end it. We'll cut it off and wrap out this rest part. Really, thank you so much for doing this. I am.
Yeah, this is great. Thank you. Thanks for inviting me to do it.
Excited to see it. In terms of, I don't know what you're doing with your book and all that, but if there is anything I can help with, if you need like a copy editor or something, and you want to send it along, I will be happy to help you. Writing is what I do. I'll send you a copy of my book. So in all your free time, with all your free ability, you can read. I don't have my book on audio yet. Which I really want to do. I don't know how to go about doing that. So.
Well, I don't either. Some people have mentioned to me several times. I've had local people say, "I'll read it. I'll read it for you if you do it on audio," because I couldn't read it myself. So that's another thing that I do. I am not able to read a regular book. I have a machine that it's just too difficult. It takes me way too long to read a book. Yeah.
Well, see, now that you're my motor, I'm like, well, now I have to put it on audio so I can send it to you and make you listen to it.
There you go. I listen to a lot of books. Even now, I don't read a lot of books. I read a lot of books because I listen to a lot of books.
Yeah.
So I just love my life in that way.
Yeah.
I love what I'm doing, and yes, I get frustrated, but I'll get through it. It will, and this too shall pass. Everything changes, so But thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I will be in touch with you.